Hello, how's everyone this week? Today, I would like to thank YouTube, and I'd like to thank all of the viewers, everyone that views my YouTubes, and I hope that it encourages um, some people, and I hope I can understand how the YouTubes help, because before making a YouTube, it took me a long time to make YouTubes, and I really appreciated all of the YouTubes that I saw before I started doing my YouTubes. And I remember I used to just take from them all the time, and very personal stories and that they had, things that they went through, and I was wondering how in the world could anybody do that. And but I was just taking from a lot of you all's or YouTubes, and I didn't feel that I wanted to do something like that. I just kept looking and being encouraged by other YouTubes, and some of them would be so personal, and some of them would be so um, inside their family, things that happened to them, embarrassing, and they were actually helping a lot. And I'm glad it took me a long time, and I'm glad that I'm able to do the same thing that everyone has, that the ones that I have appreciated did for me, and it was a lot. I mean, I'm sorry it took so long, but anyway, now here I am. This week I want to talk about. I wrote down the title. I like to keep titles. The Jehovah Witness organization, and then I put down, they suck the life out of living. The reason why I want to state that is because life is something that you enjoy every day, and there are little things that don't even mean anything. I mean, they have origins, like a word or something. It has origins, but then that origin is forgotten, or it doesn't mean anything after all. It's just used, it builds upon. In linguistics, they use it a lot. I don't know the term right now, I have to look it up. But you can have a term, you could have a story, and it could evolve over time to where it means something different, And however, the Jehovah Witness, growing up as Jehovah Witness, there was a lot of things that we did and we believed in that actually sucked the life out of our living. Even if it was just something that we enjoy. Like, for instance, I can mention something like one of the Beatles songs. And a lot of people who grew up in Jehovah's Witness, they know a lot of songs that we're not supposed to listen to. Even though we're not thinking about anything when we're listening to them, we're just enjoying it. There was one Beatles song, I can't remember. Dun, 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 dun. Of the Mary Son, there will be an answer. Let it be, let it be. We could not listen to that song. If it came on the radio, we have to turn it off. I mean, the thing about it is that if they didn't even say anything, we wouldn't even think anything about it, And that was a real beautiful song. So we couldn't sing that one. And I remember another one when Jesus Christ Superstar came. The late one female artist saying, I don't know how to love him, how he moves, how he does. And that was a beautiful song too, and we couldn't listen to that. And that's one thing that I'm happy that I'm out, because those little things in life that you can just enjoy, sometimes you don't even feel good during the day, and then all of a sudden, like a song like that, I mean, even the one with Ali Krishna, I mean, nobody wants to be there's a lot of people who are not interested in Ali Krishna, but there was one song that they sang that was just entertainment, It's just like the artists. I mean, they bring songs to us. That does not mean that we follow what they believe in. We just enjoy and we make the song our own, okay? But that's what I'm talking about, how they suck the life out of the living. So I'm mentioning some things. Another thing is birthdays, okay? I'm so happy that I celebrate my birthday now. I'm not really excited that much over my birthdays, but I have friends who really like their birthday. And it's all you have to do is say happy birthday, and that makes them so happy. Can you imagine? I mean, no matter how many problems they have their birthday, and you say happy birthday, and they're happy. I mean, their day. You can even just give them a card. Like my friend gave me this card for my birthday. I mean, now it just says shine. I mean, I didn't even I gotta get her one for her birthday. But it's just so nice, and it made me, I mean, just something about life. I don't want to suck that out of my life, but that's very important. I'm sorry, I'm back here. Anyway, that's very important in life, enjoying the little things in life. But those are the things that the Jehovah Witness suck out of their followers. They suck the living. I mean, I had said birthdays. It took me a long time to celebrate my birthday after that. Don't go into a church. It took me about 8 years before I could even go into a church. Another thing, when someone says, I'm going to mention little things, and then I'm going to get into, which coincides with this, about the why when you're dead you die and that's it. Okay, so I'm gonna get into that teaching that they have, but now I just want to mention I'm gonna build up to it because I'm mentioning all these little things that could make their day go by faster, or when they're having a terrible time, or little things that we do that make each other happy even though we don't know each other. Like, I bless you. I mean, when somebody sneezes, I remember when I was Jehovah's Witness and they sneezed, and this is more so back then than now. Now people don't really care too much, but back then you sneeze and you say, somebody says, God bless you, and the person doesn't say anything at all. And I remember being a Jehovah's Witness and not saying anything at all when somebody said that. And that was one thing I was happy about too. When after I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm trying to get this a little bit straighter. I'm sorry. When I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was so happy to be able to say thank you, or even say God bless you. And it doesn't mean anything. I mean, I know the origin now. I looked up the origin, and I understand the origin, but still nobody's thinking about something the spirit's leaving you or something like that. Nobody cares. It's just like saying thank you or something like that. That's another little thing. Thanksgiving, okay? You can't even say Thanksgiving to a Jehovah's Witness. Thanksgiving is every day. That's what we would say. Thanksgiving is every day. But boy, would we have a Thanksgiving dinner. Most of the Jehovah's Witnesses have Thanksgiving dinners because the whole family's off, and they use it for a Thanksgiving day. I mean, I remember when we were Jehovah's Witnesses and it was Thanksgiving, and although we would say we didn't celebrate it, we thought our Thanksgiving, we just had to. It was just like, we're not celebrating Thanksgiving, but we're having a Thanksgiving meal. I think some of them would just not have turkey or something like that. But anyway, we did celebrate Thanksgiving even though, because everybody was off. Everybody was off work. There was nothing to do, so we would have to actually celebrate Thanksgiving, even though we said we didn't celebrate it, because Thanksgiving is every day. But that's a sassy thing to say. When somebody says Happy Thanksgiving, you can't even say thank you, I mean, at least, Santa Claus, okay? I got something kind of in mind, but it's all right. Okay, Santa Claus. When I was a Jehovah's, this is a little story. When I was a Jehovah's Witness and I was a little kid, my sister, the one that I have a YouTube on it to where she came to my job with the Donna Summer album when she wasn't doing that well. Now she's back in the Jehovah's Witness, but that's in the YouTube. That's the sister I'm talking about. When I was, we were so young. Maybe I was like 7 or 8 or something like that, maybe younger. And my sister and her best friend took us to see Santa Claus. it was illegal. We weren't. She was Jehovah's Witness. We were Jehovah's Witness, but she did it as a prank. You know, I think she was only like, she must have been like 16 or 17. She was still in high school, or just out of high school. And she goes, "Don't tell Ma. Don't tell Ma, but I'm gonna take you to this. We're gonna take you to see Santa Claus." So we went. It was like in a mall type area, maybe a Sears, because Sears was very important back then. And I think it was me and my younger brother, my full brother. And we waited in line, and I got on Santa's lap. And Santa said, "What do you want for Thanksgiving? I mean, what do you want for Christmas?" And I could see the train. I said, "I want a train." And you know, I didn't get the train, but I was just so happy that that there was a Santa Claus. I mean, a lot of people think that kids just want gifts, but they're just happy. Believe it or not, you don't even have to give your kids gift. I'm almost positive. That's all you have to do is tell them stories about Santa Claus, or tell them about Santa Claus, and they will be happy. I'm sure that Santa Claus means more to them than the gifts. I'm almost sure about 70% or 80% of the children, Santa Claus is more important than the gifts he gives in his stories. Because as a Jehovah's Witness, we still would watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. All the Jehovah's Witnesses know that. And another thing, what I wanted to say about Santa Claus, was it Santa Claus? Okay, so my sister did that. My sister took us to see Santa Claus. She told us not to say anything to our mother, and which we didn't, okay? And I wanted to state that what I wanted to state was, everybody knows that Spider-Man is not real. Everybody knows that Batman's not real. Everybody knows that Superman is not real. Everybody knows that the soap opera characters are not real. But those are characters just like Santa Claus. Just like Santa Claus is. And it makes our life better, okay? But the Jehovah's Witnesses organization wants to suck the life out of living. And another thing about Santa Claus, one time I don't know if it was before or after my sister took me to see Santa Claus, but my father, which I hardly ever talked to him too much, he said a few words to me. I can remember everything he told me because he didn't say too many things. And I remember him lying in bed, and it was at night, everybody was sleeping mostly. And I remember going into the room where he was in the bed. And I just got on the bed beside him. He was under the covers, and I was like leaning over the bed at him. And I was just looking at him, and he looked up and he goes, he knew that we were Jehovah's Witness, and there's a story about the Jehovah's Witness and him in my other YouTube. He knew that we celebrated Christmas and everything, but he told me, and like I said, my parents kind of treated me differently, but I'm almost sure parents treat each child differently, okay? With their worlds. I explained that in my other YouTubes also. But he looked at me and he goes, you better go to bed because Santa Claus can come down the chimney. And of course, in New York, with the old homes, everybody has this, most people have a chimney, you know. And I left the room and I looked at our chimney. Of course, we didn't have any decorations or anything, but him just telling me about Santa Claus made me so happy. And the next day came and there was no gifts, but I was still happy about the story about Santa Claus. I didn't care about the gifts. Like I said, people think that people care so much about Santa Claus's gifts, but in actuality, most people just like Santa Claus. Okay, so I always believe in Santa Claus, and I still believe in Santa Claus, and I still love Santa Claus, you know. I mean, just like people like Spider-Man, I like Santa Claus, okay? So that's about Santa Claus. Now, the deaf and dead. When we learn things about things in the Jehovah's Witness, we always have these phrases that they don't even know are true. And they just state them, like for instance, okay, Jesus is not God. And they just tell us Jesus is not God, and we just like take it at face value, and we go to the door and we say, Jesus is not God. It's like that's one person, Jesus is one person, and God is one person. And we think we know everything because of that one, just that one thing they tell us. And you go to the door and you tell the person, I'm one person, you're one person. It's the same thing. Jesus is one person and God is another person. And we don't know what in the world we're talking about. We just say that one thing over and over again. And if you notice, all of their, I guess I can call it expletive. I can't really, I'm not going to say it because I'm not sure. But we said all these things about separate things, but they, if you think about it, they all don't connect to each other. So we learned that when you die, you're dead, and this is the gist of this YouTube is stating that they say that when you die, you're dead, but in actuality, we don't know. I mean, if all the people together in the whole world, we cannot say that we know as a world together. We don't know. And some things maybe we're not supposed to know altogether, okay? So my one thing I want to talk about is that when you die, you're dead. The reason why I want to say that because they base their faith on a part of their faith in that when you die, you're dead. My father died and my mother died. And everybody knows, most people know when their parents die, they don't think of them as just dead. But when you're Jehovah's Witness, you have to think that way, which is totally cruel, and it takes away, it's another way of them sucking the life out of you. I have an experience when I was very young with my father. Like I said, he didn't say too much. He said very little. He was, I hate to say this, but he was an alcoholic. He would drink all the time. I'm almost sure he drank not as being an alcoholic, but because he had no things in life. He grew up, I don't know if people understand, but a lot of blacks in America was not allowed to take care and benefits of a lot of things that most people, other people were able to take advantage of, okay? And a lot of the black men, I would think, would drink, okay? Well, I'm almost sure that's what my father did because he was very intelligent, but he was born in like 1916. But he never expressed, both of my parents, I can say this, I want to say this about both, they never said anything about color. That's one thing my parents never, that's important for me for me doing this story. I grew up in a house where we never said anything, we never used the N-word, we never used black, we never used white, even though I'm almost sure my father was oppressed, I'm almost sure, but he never said anything about white people. He never said anything about black people. My mother never said anything about white people. My father never said, so in our household, we never talked about things like that. We just lived, and that's it, and enjoyed life. So I'm going to tell you how I was when I was younger with my father, and then his passing away. Like I said, he was an alcoholic. And he told me one time, he goes, he just said it like, I was standing beside him, and one of the things he said was, make sure you take advantage of, he didn't explain anything about the world, about being black or being white. He just said, make sure you take advantage of the different things that society has to offer you, like the different organizations, like, I don't know, I guess from now I was talking, what I was thinking was like financial aid, things like that, welfare, if you had to be on welfare, food stamps. I guess that's what he was talking about because I was very young, and like I said, my parents would pass down information. So in actuality, to me, it was kind of like saying, you're gonna have a rough life. But that's one of the things he told me. But he didn't say anything about hard times or having or being black. He never said anything like that, which I'm happy for. He just let me see what was going to happen to me as far as life is concerned. And I remember another thing that happened between us. Forget about that subject now. I was sitting down eating breakfast, and he knew that I didn't want to be bothered, but he bothered me. And my whole family understands this, and they think I'm evil for this. And I told him to leave me alone. He kept touching my head, and I told him to leave me alone. And I'm almost sure he knew what I would do. And I got up and I kicked him, and he never did anything whatsoever. He just told my mother. And he goes, "Look what your son did." And he got like a boil, because I think he was kind of sick. He made himself sick from drinking so much. But he never did anything at all to me. And I think he did that, I'm almost sure, because he was very intelligent. He did that to show that there was no way in the world that he would harm me. And as I grew up, I wasn't afraid of him whatsoever. My mother was kind of afraid of him. But because of that situation, he showed me that not to be afraid of him. I wasn't afraid of him whatsoever. I mean, he did some things wrong. So, anyway, but my sister, my full sister, just think it's the most terrible thing. And I'm sorry for doing that, actually, because I grew up to love him very much, and I never did anything like that. But I'm almost sure he did it in a way to where he knew that I would do that to him. So that's another story. So I'm just telling you this thing because I want to explain something about how parents pass away and they don't just die. So I actually grew up, I actually started to not like him. It was almost like a hate, I guess, a childish hate. But I don't know why. But things like that, I remember my mother hiding behind a couch, and she had a scissors, and I got behind the couch. But because of what my father did, I wasn't afraid of him. Like I said, he made me to where I wasn't afraid of him. And my mother said she was afraid of him, and she was hiding behind the couch, and she could see the front door, all the way through the house. It was a big apartment. And she kind of told me, she goes, "I'm afraid your father, what he's going to do." But I saw no warnings whatsoever. And I remember her having the scissors, and she said, "He's not going to do anything to you, though. He's not going to do anything to the children." But I remember not feeling any danger whatsoever, but she did. So then things like that would happen, but he never talked too much to us. I'm trying to think of some. There was one nice thing that he said to me, like I said about the Santa Claus, that was nice. And another nice thing, I would go up to him and he wouldn't really say anything. Sometimes he'd just smile. But he had made himself sick, which I understand now, to where he couldn't be close to us because of some of the sickness that he had, because he drank all the time. So he did do things to make us not jump up on him and things like that. So it was a relationship, but it was pretty separate. We never got close to him whatsoever. So anyway, the day he passes away, okay? I'm not going to explain the story how he passed away. He did die in a car accident. But the day he died, I was at the television. We had like I said, we had a big in New York where we lived. They have a lot of houses. It's one house, and somebody lives upstairs and somebody lives downstairs. And the way most of the houses are, or the way our house was, is like you could be all the way in the back where the living room was, and you could view the front door, even though it was a big house, from the back of the house. And then the front door was the kitchen. And I remember my father leaving, and my sister wanted to go, and my mother wanted to go to see her sister, my aunt and uncle, okay? And they left, and I was sitting like this watching TV. I think it was I Love Lucy or something like that, but I had big, thick glasses, so I didn't see that well. And I was kind of quiet into myself, but I love Friends, okay? but people didn't know that. So I have few friends at school, but none in the congregation and things like that. So I was watching TV, and I disrespected my father very highly. Maybe it was like a childish hate. It had to have been a childish hate because I grew up to really love him. Probably because I said he kept us at a distance, okay? So it wasn't really like a regular father-son relationship. So I was watching TV, and this is the night that he dies. He dies in a car accident with my mother in the car and my sister in the car. And like I said, I remember the ruckus to where my father wanted to go. My mother wanted to go see her sister. My father had to take her, and my sister saying she wanted to go also. And so they leave, but I'm watching TV constantly. I'm like watching it just like I'm watching a screen like this, you know. And watching it, and all of a sudden, as time goes on, I don't know the time. And also, this is, in order to understand this, you're going to understand some of my first video, in my first YouTubes, I talk about a screen that I had as a kid. A screen. I can't explain it now, but you can go back and look at it if you're interested. But I had a screen. It's a mental screen that I had in my head of how I would view things that would happen to me. So I'm watching TV. I don't know how the time and the chronology, how things work. But I remember silence. Everything, nobody, like I said, I could see straight through the house. Everything, but I couldn't see anything. Everybody was in their room. I think my sister and my younger brother was in their rooms, but there was nobody there in the room where I was, and I was in the living room all the way at the end of the house. And I turned, and I remembered this throughout my whole life. I turned, and I saw my father, and he was staring at me. And of course I wasn't pleased because I disrespected him. I didn't like constantly tell him that. Only that one time when I kicked him that I actually communicated that I didn't care about him. Other than that, I would just keep everything to myself. I wasn't like violent or anything like that. It was just something that he wanted me to do. I'm almost positive because I never did anything like that for no reason. So anyway, he's there, and I turn, and I'm looking at him, and he's staring at me. And I remembered this throughout my life. And then he smiles, and he goes something like he would always do, you know, like, you always do that. He gave me this motion like, you always do that, you know. And I saw that, and he smiled. And then I don't know if I remember him walking to the door or leaving, but I remember that was the last time I saw him because I kept watching TV, okay? And there was nobody else there. And I kept watching TV. And then all of a sudden, I don't remember how long I was watching TV or whatever. That's the whole thing. As a kid, I was like, what grade? I was in 3rd grade. I'm almost sure. Yes, because that's 1st, 2nd, I'm kind of 3rd grade. Okay, maybe I was in 3rd grade. No, I wasn't in 3rd grade. I was in 5th grade. I was in 5th grade, okay? I was in 5th grade. So you kind of know what kind of age I was in to where I don't know exactly when things occur. So as I'm watching TV, I finished watching TV. I turned the TV off. Remember, I have real thick glasses, and very thick. I mean, my glasses are like this thick, not this size, but this thick, like this. Okay. And when I walk past the first bedroom, my sister comes out, and she said, "There's a problem." And she walks into the kitchen, and she tells me to go to bed. And my bedroom is all the way at the front by the front door in my bedroom. our bedroom is right in the front of the house. You know, the front of the door that we keep coming in and out of. Actually, it's the back of the house, but I call it the front of the house because that's the house. That's the door that we would come in and out of. Okay. So we would never, most of the time, we never allowed to come in and out of the front door. So it's actually the back of the house, but I always say the front of the house because we kept going in and out of that. So anyway, that door on the right-hand side, when you come into our house, come into our apartment house, my bedroom was to the right. Me and my younger brother, full brother, my youngest brother, the youngest child. And then if you look to the left, there's a kitchen. It's a big kitchen, okay? So it's important because I'm telling you this story. So anyway, we know something's happened. So I'm in the bed and I know that there's an accident. So I'm laying in bed and my younger brother is in the bed with me and he's sleeping. And I'm saying to myself very hatefully, I don't care if something happened to my father, but I hope nothing happens to my mother, who was pretty sick. I mean, but it's kind of sad, but that's the way I viewed it back then because I said I felt no affection or love from him. And of course I would change that soon. But anyway, I knew something was wrong because my landlord was talking in the kitchen. Of course, we could hear everything kind of vaguely, but I could hear that there was an accident. So the first thing that happened was the screen. I remember when I found out there was an accident, was a screen. When I found out, my sister came in and stated that there was an accident and your father died, and my sister and my ma and Lynette is all right. And I was relieved, but I had put something on the screen that didn't mean too much to me. Is that I had just seen him. And it meant nothing to me, but it went directly on the screen. And I could not view that because I was so young. I was in 5th grade, you know. I didn't think that, how is it, you know how in your mind you would automatically, if I was older and could understand things, I would automatically think, how could I have seen him, and when did the accident occur? I mean, so that's another thing. When we get messages or our parents, when they pass away or something like that, it's always a possibility that it's not true. And that's good because it helps us to say that you cannot go around saying there's life after death, or there's no life after death. And that's what we're left with. So it's not something that we want to say strongly that there's no life after death. And we don't want to say that there is life after death, because it would take away something from life, you know? So like I'm saying, like back then, I couldn't say that I seen him, he had passed away and I had seen him, or I couldn't say that I didn't see him, or he went and heated up the car and he came in and said that, say a sort of goodbye, which means that he knew he was gonna die. So, and my mother probably kind of figured that he knew that he was gonna pass away. But that's how things are when we get messages like that. It's always like a coincidence, or it's always something that we can believe or we can't believe. And that makes life more interesting, and it helps us out. And it helps us not to be able to preach that this is true or that's true. And that's what I want to say about Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't know. I mean, for them to boldly say that there's no life after death sucks the life out of living. And there's a lot of religions that will not say anything. We don't know, or this is this in this Bible, but they won't suck the life out of your living and say, no, that can't be true. So anyway, going back to the story, in my screen, I couldn't say, I didn't even care about it. I just put it on the screen, okay? So I'm back there in the bed and saying, oh, my mother's not passed away, my sister's not passed away. But I don't want to say how mean I was, you know. It wasn't like hateful, hateful. It was just a not understanding about how life is, kind of hatred or whatever, childish hatred. So anyway, then the next morning comes and they're talking. Of course, me and my brother, we don't really take it so seriously, but I knew my father passed away. But then I had it on the screen. I kept seeing on the screen blank in real quick, like, how could it, how could he, because they described that he was in a car accident. So I'm thinking like, in the screen, I just put on the screen real quick, maybe, you know, like something to keep in my mind. You know, you have these things when you're a child that you remember. How could I have seen him and he was in an accident and he died? You know, just the scene, just not an incomplete sentence that I put on the screen because I didn't care. And I remember his funeral, I didn't want to go to his funeral. It was kind of sad. I hate to say things like that, but like I said, I grew up to love him and I understand what the things that happened. I remember him, the people coming in after he died, his sisters and brothers and things like that. So then as time goes on, I always remember seeing me. Another thing too, when he passed away, my sister was out in the car and my mother had to bring her back to life by hitting her. I remember she said she passed out in the car, my mother kept hitting her because they died in a car accident, like I said, and my sister passed out and she kept hitting her until she came to life. But the point is that was his daughter and he couldn't communicate with her anything. My brother was sleeping, he couldn't communicate with him anything. So I was the only child that was awake, you know. And another thing that happened when my mother came, she was in a full body cast, but she walked up the stairs. You know, she was let out of the hospital. And she kept telling the story to us about how he died. The car hit the pole and the steering wheel went into his chest and she saw the hat. This is what made me believe that there was something strange going on, because she kept saying the story of his hat on his head. He was always wearing hats. The hat on his head flew up in the air, his head went back, and the hat ended right back on his head. And she kept saying that. His hat flew off of his head, the steering wheel went inside his chest, his head went back, and the hat flew back on his head. And she would say that all the time. So as I got older, I would always remember those two things, but I never thought anything about it. And even my friend told me later on, when I was much older, I mean, not as old as I am right now, what did you learn from your father? And I thought I would always think back to the last time I seen him. And I was thinking not to be like him. I think he taught me not to be like him because, I mean, I used to drink a lot, but I wasn't an alcoholic. But I just learned not to drink. I mean, I would drink a lot, even when I was younger, but I would just enjoy it, but I wasn't an alcoholic. And like I said, he drank to medicate himself, I'm almost sure, which a lot of people did. Not just blacks, but whites also I'm almost sure, when they had like no insurance and things like that. I mean, you know, I'm almost sure a lot of people drunk themselves to death when they didn't have things, you know, set up like they do now. But anyway, that's what I learned from him. And life went on and I got older and older. And I think in my 40s, so you know I'm over 40, that's when I went back to school. And I was able to go back to school and understand things. But I told you I always studied linguistics. So I was studying linguistics even though I didn't know it was linguistics. A part of language, not language itself, but linguistics. You have to figure that out. I'm sorry, but I have to keep on with this YouTube. So when I got back in school, I would study and I learned how things happen and I learned how things go. And I wasn't able to go to finish until, to actually process the things that happened in college until I was in my 40s. I was not able to do it. To put the puzzle or the pieces together. And now I was putting the puzzles and the pieces together. And it wasn't until after I was out of college and I kept studying to where I was able to put the pieces together to where my last time I seen my father, and then I said to myself, and I was Catholic, and then I was able to understand that something could have happened. I'm not saying 100% sure, but as a Jehovah's Witness, that was taken away from me. But now I could actually believe it. It could be true, or it doesn't have to be true. And I could not. Like I said, it was on the screen, and I made that as a possibility. So for me to see him, and I don't know how things work, but I saw him, and it was like him saying goodbye to me. And he never smiled like he did, but it was his smile. And the only other possibility would be that he left my sister and my mother in the car to warm up, and he would have had to come out of the car, and nobody else was in the room to come to do that thing with me. He knew he couldn't get that close to me. But like I said, if he did that, that means that he knew that he was going to pass away, okay? But then there's a other possibility, and that's how things are in life. They don't want to be, whatever is beyond our life, they don't want us to know for sure that, yes, my father did see me after death. So they don't want that in us. They want it to be like that, like a dream, like it could be true or it doesn't have to be true. But I can actually say that there's a possibility that he loved me so much. My brother was sleeping, my sister was passed out, and I was his only child. He had to really, really love me to say to God or whatever, that's just what I want. If I could just say to him that I love him, okay? That he meant so much to me. Because it meant a lot for me in my life, because he couldn't give us anything, you know what I mean? But because of the circumstances in his life. But to give me that really, really meant something in my life, to see him like that. And everybody has to draw their conclusions, but I want that to be like he did come to, God did allow him to come and say goodbye to me like that. Because I got the chance to see him smile. And I got a chance to him to tell me that I know you love me. Not now you don't love me, my son, but I know you love me, and I know you will love me, okay? And that's what I want to say that the Jehovah's Witnesses took away from me when I was a Jehovah's Witness. But that's something that I gained when I became a non-Jehovah's Witness, when I became in the world. I wanted to put my mother's on this one, but that one has to be next week because I know this one took a long time. But, I just want to say this to those who are in Jehovah's Witness, is that when your parents die, they don't just leave you, they just don't leave you stranded. They just don't leave, not all parents have enough money to leave you things, but believe me, they stay with you. And some parents that you may not understand, and some that you may, like I said, I didn't like my father. I'm not going to say hate because that's such a strong word. It was a childish hate, I would think, or disrespect. But even those parents that left you and you think that they don't care about you, you got to open up yourself to see that they do leave you some kind of hints. They can't leave you strong messages, and it's not a good idea to go see somebody saying this is alive or that's alive, or to make any more out of it than just that, just a little hint. Don't try and make any more out of it, but just take the feeling. Like, for instance, the thing that happened to my father, I don't try and get it explained. The only person that can explain it to me is my personal relationship with God. Don't try and find it in a book or anything like that, because it's something above our lives on earth. Just enjoy it for that. And the same thing that goes for dreams. You have your dreams, just enjoy the dream just like that. Don't try and make more out of it. Don't try and look in an encyclopedia or go to the bookstore or find it, because it's a higher knowledge. And I want to say this to Jehovah's Witnesses, that when you go out of the religion, that's one thing, with all the emptiness in your head when you leave, you can just, don't try and fill it all at once. Just take it little by little and just enjoy the hints that we have in life, okay? And that's all I want to say about that. And the next week I'm going to talk about my mother's passing away. I thought I could fit both of them, but that's not it. So don't have your life sucked out. Leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. Enjoy the things that are in the world, because the world, of course, is like a forest. And nobody wants to walk in the forest and not know anything. But in the forest, like I'm using the world as a forest, you'll find people that will help you. Not everybody's going to help you, but you will find people that's going to help you. Other people just like you. And you got to search. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening.